We'll just get reference here from Bear's side of things. We usually get an echo from him. And hey,
Coming
all.
out.
Let's see. I have everything muted. Okay, guys, give us a thumbs up if you can hear us. And we will fire this bad boy up. Have Jean Nolan from the wonderful Inspired YouTube channel that is really helped me a lot in the last few months, Sean. Love your content. More than anything, though, I love your persona and how you deliver your content. It's so important. The sort of energy you put out. It's in these times, it is inspiring. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you.
Thumbs up. Okay, I'm going to hit record and we will fire this bad boy up. Here we go. And boom, we're back for another episode of AlphaCast. I'm Mike Winter, and I'm here as always with the champion of freedom, Dr. Bear Paul Lando, back from the down south beach, a wonderful vacation with the fam. I was quite envious down in like 80-degree SoCal weather as we're up here freezing our kahunas off with, God, we hit in the 30s last few nights. But I was in the water a lot, Bear, and thank you to my beautiful wetsuit. I've been enjoying the surf up here, even though I was very envious of you down there.
I'll be out there paddling with you someday soon, hopefully. I have to, being for so many years living in the tropics and trunking it without a wetsuit, it's kind of hard for me to get back into the frigid California water here. Great to be back, awesome, being with family down there. I can never get enough of my grandkids and kids, but I really felt like kissing the ground once I got back here because Southern California is something to behold. That's all I'll say. And we're in a nice place, in Santa Barbara. We weren't in the inner city or anything like that. So, but anyway, good to be back. And I was at Rincon there, actually, just watching some pretty good breaks happen the whole time. So I'm going to definitely start surfing, every time I go down there. John, this is so amazing to have you here today. I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and he's going to just read a little bio there to get things off, and I'll make a couple remarks, but we're just excited to have you here today, and just real special.
The pleasure's all mine. Thank you both so much.
Yeah. Yesterday afternoon, I was writing up a little newsletter, about this podcast, and I was listening to some of your music. My two favorites are Make America Great and Wise Man. And every time I hear Make America Great, it gives me chills. So that's definitely going to go down as one of the all-time Patriot classics there. So you're just awesome. We love you. And Mike, take it away.
Sure. And for those new to Alfa Vedic, you can find out more about us at alfavedic.com. That's ALFAVEDIC.com. We have a new refresh site coming soon with a membership platform, so keep an eye out for that. The best way to stay up to date with us is please join our mailing list. We never know when other systems will be shut down. So if you want to stay up to date with everything we're doing, join our mailing list on our site. Yes, and Jean Nolan today joins us, country music artist, songwriter, and inspirator, joins us on this special AlphaCast. He is a very much doing big things in his part of the world. Quote, today, more than ever, we need truth, authenticity, inspiration, and most of all, a solid relationship with the creator. John is co-founder of the Inspired channel with his wife, Kristin Nolan, who are self-described parents, inspirators, free spirits, creators, and teachers whose mission is to inspire you to find your true power. As a songwriter, artist, and inspirational speaker, Jean finds his purpose in inspiring others to live theirs. Jean and Kristin together have creatively expanded their knowledge sharing networks through the immensely popular Inspired podcasts, life coaching events, and the inspiredchannel.net. All those links will be in the show notes below. Quote, our story is filled with love, adventure, and the unconditional desire to always learn, grow, and expand and never shy away from the contrast that assists us doing that. Whether speaking to the darker side of the globalist agenda, matters of health, politics, or ominous prophecies from the past, Jean masterfully does this so from a context of spirituality and the reality of self-determination. Quote, when everything on the outside gets really chaotic, it could be a sign that we're close to a breakthrough moment. No doubt this is an episode not to be missed, as Jean here is to empower you to connect to Source, God, the universe, and hear your own guidance system for the confidence and the tools to live the life of your dreams. This is exactly within the philosophy of Alfa Vedic. We believe in self-determination and taking responsibility for your life, and that is how the universe works. We are in a mind-powered universe delivered by divinity, and when we take responsibility for that and master our thoughts and our actions and everything follow through, and life is beautiful. Bear Lando, take it away.
Okay, John, again, awesome to have you here. I listened to your premiere with David and Kathy this morning. It was great, and what a great combination with the three of you people there. And I'd encourage everybody to get over and listen to that. You covered some topics that are pretty popular these days. We've been covering them on our channel when we get into simulation theory, which I don't think is a theory, and AI and that sort of thing. So I'd really like to get your thoughts on it. It was great hearing you on a roundtable, but it would be good just to isolate you a little bit, put you on the spot, and see where you think all this is going. And I don't think you need any introduction. Our audience knows a lot about you already, but in the event there's somebody out there that doesn't know you, it might be fun. And I'd like to know a little bit more myself. You had an interesting upbringing in Austria, I believe, and then somehow made your way over to the States here and became a country Western performer. So if you give us a little history, if you don't mind, you've probably done it a lot, but I think we'd all enjoy that. And then we can get into some nitty gritty here.
Sounds fantastic. And first, let me say, Bear and Mike, thank you so much for having me. It's a great honor and pleasure to be here. And thank you for the wonderful work you do. As I just said, Kristin and I, we got familiar with your work through the movie that was on is on the Iconic platform. Absolutely amazing work that inspired us deeply. So we're so excited for this connection. And honestly, to be honest, I don't really like talking about myself all that much because I think there's so much to speak about. But I understand it's quite a curious story. If you see a guy with a cowboy hat singing country songs and you'd expect him to be from Georgia or Tennessee or any of those places, but really I'm from Europe originally and grew up in Austria. And there's perhaps one story that explains it the best, the whole picture in one little story. Must have been about 3-4 years old, and I was playing with my little Matchbox micro cars in the living room in our little apartment where we lived at the time. And I think my mom was sitting at the dining room table or something, reading a newspaper. She's a journalist, so that's probably what she did. And she later told me I was playing on the floor with my cars and talking to myself like kids do, but I wasn't speaking German or Slovenian, the two languages that I was raised with. I was mumbling something that sounded English to her. And mind you, that was in a time where we didn't have anything English on TV. It was not a language that I was in any way, shape, or form familiar with, at least not from a conscious standpoint. But the longer she listened, the more she said it just sounded so English to me, and she didn't speak English at the time. So it was so weird to her that she decided to sign me up for an English class. And it all came so natural to me. To me, it was like remembering things. And then later when I started traveling to North America, Canada, and the United States, I remember every time I stepped on that holy ground, Turtle Island, for me, it was like coming home, and I couldn't explain the feeling. It would be freezing cold, winds blowing in Canada in December, and I would feel right at home and have tears in my eyes. And later when Kristin and I decided to move our family to Tennessee, because I had been in music and country music for a while and in music all my life, it was like coming home, literally like coming home, understanding the culture, the people, from a level of remembering rather than learning. And to me, it made it so clear for me that I had been here before, and this place is absolutely, home soil for me. So nothing feels more natural than being here and working and playing and doing what I do every day.
Well, we're glad you're here. And you know what I love about you guys is your wife and yourself are a team. And, Deb and I have always, we've had many years together. And there's something really powerful when a husband-wife team can, be in business, raise a family, and do all the above together, be good friends, but be a power battery, a real creative couple. There's an immense potential on that. And, I'd love to see more couples out there doing what you guys are doing. What you speak of as far as this being home, it recalls to me a prophecy. I know you're aware of the Hopi prophecy where they said the rainbow children, the descendants of the ancient ones would all come into this place at this point in time, and wear skins of all colors and races, and really be the memory banks of what has gone before and to guide us in the future. So you're obviously one of those old souls that belongs here. So so amazing. So why don't we start out too, if you can tell us maybe any projects that you're really engaged with now. I know you're really busy out there. You guys are working on many fronts. Just kind of share with us anything you're up to, and then maybe we can dive into some subject matter of other types.
Absolutely. And I so agree with you that the beauty of us doing this together, Kristin and I, is, if you look at it from an energetic standpoint, it combines both the male and the female energies, which we've seen so much imbalance, a lot of male energy, extreme, and, even the women that have come up in the last decades so often needed to, or were pushed into being more like men. So this beautiful, and my wife is a real woman with beautiful feminine energy. So that's what makes it so well balanced and rounded. And truth be told, you see me on camera 95% of the time, but there's so much behind the scenes that she takes care of, and that she does, and that she brings her energy to, and people can feel it. They can feel it, and they mention it in the comments. They feel her energy. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful for us and why we enjoy it so much. But she's really, I don't know if it's the same with you and your wife, but I'm always amazed at what she can accomplish in any given day. I don't even get close to that. Never, ever. So just wanted to say that. And as I have expanded on that subject, I totally forgot what your actual question was, Bear.
Well, no. I was talking about or asking you, about any special projects that you're engaged with.
Yes,
yes. A quick comment. Sorry to disrupt again. When you're talking about two polarities coming together and finding balance, that's when you leave the world of illusion, the world of polarities, and that can later on in the talk maybe segue into AI and all the other stuff and simulation theory, because we live in the simulation. It's really electrical effects, after effects. It's not original source or original idea. You have to come to that point of stillness, which you talk a lot about on, your broadcast, as far as your practice daily with meditating and, so, and then when you have a couple that comes together and seeks that balance with each other, you create a harmony. And, there's a reason why the Sufi order of old, they said, the best way to enlightenment is to get yourself a partner, because it's a difficult path, because you're always going to have that mirror of your own shortcomings. But then if you can get over that and find that harmony between each other, then that stillness that you derive through that is not just a power of manifestation, but you leave the world of illusion and enter that, that source consciousness of creative potential, which is why you guys are doing such special things in the world. Which brings me to the question, what are you guys up to?
So I think one of the most important things, and this has been the vision driving everything for us, has been really for the past 12 years or more, is the division of the kin's domains, which, if you're familiar with the Anastasia books or Ringing Cedars books.
Yes,
And
Gabriel says hi, by the way.
wonderful. Yeah, Gabriel is running, the founder of the Anastasia Foundation here in North America. A wonderful, wonderful spirit as well. And this has been, it's really affected our souls and spirits on a level I can't even describe. And it's a vision that has never left us. And so everything, all the work basically that we do is to help bring this to fruition on a larger scale. And part of it, and that's recently begun, is our great friendship and collaboration with Food Forest Abundance, which is a wonderful movement and company based out of Florida, Jim Gale. And it's so many of the topics that you all and we can completely relate to, because they all work for the same vision, the same outcome. And so Jim speaks a lot about food independence, permaculture, and all the things you speak about as well. And he's kind of really, I think, taken the best of what the business world has created over the last century or so and put it to good use, right? And make it scalable and make it applicable for people that have never really been much of, in touch with gardening or growing food, or always thought it's very difficult. And so he made it, and his team, they made it so easy and simple for people to get into it, that it's the most natural thing that we would collaborate. So that in the background is a lot of the work that we do, setting up Freedom Farm academies that are completely, if you will, off the grid kind of homesteads, and teaching people how to do that themselves, teaching people how to install food forests. And we're getting more and more interest from corporations that have land, or churches, or other groups that have land. And of course, if you look at the big picture in a world where there's so much uncertainty, where the food chain as we know it is being completely dismantled, it's more appropriate than ever for people to do it. But at the same time, there's a much more spiritual component to it than what just meets the eye here. There's a return to the land, a return to the seed, the seed of everything. And the seed holds the whole truth, because out of one seed, the whole plant grows, and all the information is already in there. So it's symbolic as well. And people are beginning to connect these dots. The conspiracy people in politics and that are very minded there, and that's where their focus is, and the spiritual people and the people that feel very connected to nature, it's all beginning to connect. And we're very much invested in helping to facilitate that connection and make people see that we all belong together. And so that's been really in the background, a lot of what we've been doing and what we're going to continue to do over the next year. And then, of course, parallel to that, we still have uncovering work to do. We still have, like you hinted at, even the simulation, the matrix, and all the things that have been going on within it, that people are on a large scale really just beginning to grasp. So a lot of people say, just step into the solution energy, don't look at any of that. And we so often see that when people don't see it and don't realize it, they almost unconsciously support wrong agendas or dark agendas because they don't know about them. And so this is a very complex journey that we're on, where we are uncovering inconvenient dark truths and at the same time co-creating new paths, new systems, and actually the original system that I think we were created to live in and live with. So it's a complex thing, and sometimes it seems like there's not enough hours in the day. But then we remind ourselves that there's a greater power and irregular solutions that come to us every day. So it's an exciting and never boring journey, I can tell you that.
For certain. Well, it's so great to hear that you're with the Anastasia folks, Gabriel, and with Jim. Both Mike and I have been on their platforms. We've had them on ours. And and
actually both spoke at Music. Gabriel spoke at Music in Sky, and Jim was supposed to come speak at Music in Sky in California. He got stuck in the Dallas airport for like 16 hours and couldn't make it. So they're both dear friends, and that's so cool. We're all connected because that just shows the resonance and that we're all on this. We see it. We see where we're going. Sorry to interrupt, Bear.
No, no worries. You know, I was just going to say the first clue that you're getting divine inspiration and nothing, you know, on the lower levels is when a lot of good people get the same idea at the same time. So, you know, we've just been behind the scenes doing our thing for a long time. And then we've, you know, connected with some of the people you mentioned. And, you know, we're all arriving at this point in time. And, you know, what I really want to do, and I see what, you know, what we need to be more involved with is just interconnecting with all these folks, which we're already doing. That's one good thing about technology. It's bringing us together. You know, Jim's in Florida there, you know, we're out here on the left coast. And then you have, you know, people that are all over the world. You know, I really like to tune into the talks with the Anastasia folks there. You know, they're in Europe. And what's really good, you know, I started following Anastasia long ago when the books first came out. And Russia is really a soul brother to the Americas. When I talk about America, it's the three Americas, not in a globalistic sense, but, you know, it is one landmass. And, you know, when we talk about being Americans, when I say that, I mean, you know, South America, Central America, and Canada, you know, we're all in this together. And we shouldn't have to have borders. Right now we have to, because we're getting, you know, played against each other. But, you know, they're all, you know, we're all one kin. And, you know, we need to start realizing that. But Russia has a very important historical connection with us. And also on the energetic level, which also might give us a clue as far as why Russia is being demonized right now and, you know, under attack. And, you know, when Russia and North America here, and, you know, just right up, not too far north, we're almost connected there, depending on which map you believe in. But it's really, you know, important, you know, that people are coming together. And as you, David, and Kathy were talking about this morning on your premiere, is the one thing the folks that want to control us fear most is that we're coming together, because when we come together, we'll stop complying. And that's why this is such an exciting time right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's kind of like we've been all in this huge space, but we were all in our own cubicle, and you know, quietly in our own cubicle, and all of a sudden one's getting up and the other's getting up, and you just see how many there are getting out from their cubicles. And that's, I think, what's happening, and it's unstoppable. Of course, you know, they're going to throw everything at us that they can to slow it down, to disguise it, to demonize it. All the old, we know every trick in the book by now, but it's still unstoppable. The question is, are we going to have to go through a lot of suffering? Are we going to, can we get there faster? I think that was Anastasia's, or Anastasia. That was her vision, really, was, can we actually make a huge shift without another cataclysm, like it's, you know, been over and over and over and over again, countless times. And this is a big question. We're experiencing a cataclysm right now. It's not the cataclysm yet. And I still believe we could potentially make it through the shift without having to destroy everything. And that's kind of the goal here, I think, right? That's why we're so passionate, because perhaps we can do it in a better way this time around.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
you just recently had Jason on. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, I think from my research, yeah, we have these cataclysms for a reason. It's like the great, you know, cleansing of the planet from all of the collective thoughts that lead to this destiny that takes us down the darkness. But I do agree, Jean. I agree that I don't personally see that happening for a long time. And I think we have the opportunity to move into a sort of golden age because of people like yourself and Alfa Vedic and Kathy O'Brien, who will be on the show actually December 22nd, booked her. And those that are affecting the collective field of consciousness. And through that, we affect our destiny. I really believe that. And I believe it doesn't take the majority. It's a minority to do it, and then the majority follows. So yes, I think it's inescapable. The cataclysms come. It's part of the cycles, but I don't see that cycle within the near future, like our recent guest Jason Brashears is saying 2040. Through his certain mathematical historical calculations, he's saying 2040, and I know you've had Jason on as well, Jean, that we're already there. And I have different thoughts based on the science of thought and based on work from people like Walter Russell, who have shown that the field can be affected by the science of our thoughts. So we are doing the work here today by influencing others to start realizing the power they have by simply thinking into their reality.
Well, I couldn't agree more with you. That's exactly what, and that's exactly what's happening to people. It's happening. It always happens first on a personal level. I mean, as much as we see suffering on a grand scale because of the way we lost our way, people experience this first on a personal level. Things don't work out in their lives. They're in pain. They're, poverty, abuse, relationships that don't work, all these things. And what does it do to people? I mean, for many, thankfully so, that hitting rock bottom says, I need to change something. And then they realize when everything else on the outside falls away and you can't change things on the outside anymore, you have to change what's on the inside and actually release yourself from all the false beliefs and all the suffering. And that's the personal journey that we're all on. It's also the return to the original creative energy, I think, the energy of the creator, and realizing we were created really in the image of the creator. And that is reflected on the inside. And when we heal, forgive, release the crap, all the bullshit, what remains is essence, right? And that's who we really are. So it's not so much changing ourselves as actually living up to who we really are and releasing everything else. And that's happening. That there's no doubt about it. It's happening on such a massive scale that if I said this, I think if I would teleport myself into 2010, 2012, I wouldn't be able to believe what's happening right now, because the numbers have grown so significantly, because it reflects in the language that people use. It reflects in their choices. Like you've been, Bear, you've been mentioning the rainbow warriors and the rainbow people. And it's so interesting that so many people say they moved to our neck of the woods here to Tennessee from various places. And when I asked them why, the most common answer is, I don't know. I was just guided to do this. And these are, not always just spiritual people. Sometimes it's freaking accountants or God knows what, just very down to earth, regular people. I don't mean this in a condescending way, but people that don't usually use that kind of language. Let's just, I don't know. I was just, God told me, the creator told me, universe told me to move here. So there's something huge happening, and there is not to be underestimated what that can bring about. So I remain more than hopeful. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing what we're doing every day.
Yeah, you need folks from all walks of life. In some of the old theosophical teachings, they said the new age, not in a new agey sense, but the next golden age would be ushered in by business people, people from all walks of life that actually know how to roll up their sleeves and get things done. So it's not necessarily the folks that are the academians or the folks that have, read Rudolf Steiner and some of the things we talk about here. So you can't judge a book by its cover for sure. I really think it's valuable. Mike touched on it a little bit, and I jumped into this many years ago as far as understanding the physics of the simulation. And when you get to the physics of the simulation, you get to original idea. And at that level, which is the whole shebang, a child can understand it. Things only get complicated when you see the electrical after effects in their many divisions and forms and the way things play out. And of course, that's what we're seduced into paying attention to, which creates chaos, which is the plan. So, but just with that understanding that when, we leave that sensing world and go to that original point of balance that we mentioned, then we are being inspired. That's when, people like Jim and yourself and Gabriel and us, we all say, hey, let's start farming and return to the land. And yeah, so good things are happening. And I think cycles are real. I love the amazing research of people like Jason and a lot of others, that we've talked to. It's phenomenal. But I also believe cycles are to be broken. They have to stop somewhere. And again, with these basic understandings and desire comes from the creator. Desire puts those electrical effects that we think of as thought into motion that create the simulation. Okay, so what? Who or why? Are there overlays? Are there simulations within simulations? It's sure explainable how that's possible and how some people could have abused that, but it really gets to a point like, who cares? And that doesn't mean you stick your head in the sand. It means that you understand the same science that some people are using against us and get busy yourself. So what do you think? Are we here to go through endless cycles or are we about to break free?
That's the same question I asked David and David Icke and Kathy O'Brien in the interview you mentioned earlier. And it's something I think about a lot. As I said, I don't think it is necessarily natural or necessary to always go through cycles. I think it is part of this program that we're in, right? A program. And the question is, who does it benefit? And before I answer that, at least in my perception, there's a story, an experience Kristin and I had that's been coming up for the past 2 days, and I didn't know why until you just said what you said. Now I realize why the story came up so I could share it here. And that was quite many years ago. I want to say probably at least 10, 12 years ago. And we were in Austria. We were at a farmer's market where we would go twice a week and get our produce and all of that. And we were standing on the edge of the farmer's market where there was a bus lane and there was a bus parked there. And then there is kind of a second bus lane right next to it where buses move in and out. And we were standing there having a conversation. And out of the corner of my eye, I'm observing this elderly lady. She was probably the grandmother or great-grandmother, I don't know, pushing a stroller with a toddler in it, right? And she moves the stroller in front of the parked bus. And I turned my head and I could see another bus in that second lane. So there's a parked bus and the other bus is moving quite fast in that second lane. And she was pushing that stroller right into the street. And what happened there is, I can't explain it in physical terms the way we understand physics. What happened was, and it happened for Kristin and I, and we realized this later, I looked at the situation, and in my mind, there was no panic. There was nothing else. And this is going to sound crazy. I willed for an overlap of dimensions to happen so that bus wouldn't hit the stroller. The way I saw it in my eyes was the bus went through the stroller. Above it, beyond, I don't know how to explain it any other than that. She pushed that stroller into the road, and where the stroller was and where the bus went, they would have shared the same space, but somehow they didn't. And I thought I was crazy. And I looked at Kristin and she said, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" And I said, "Yeah, I saw it." And she said, "I wanted this to happen." I said, "I wanted this to happen too." It all happened in a split second, but it kind of expanded in our perception into a minute. I don't know how long. It just felt like everything was in slow motion and this thing happened. And it's nothing to be, you could go, "Oh, wow, I'm so powerful. I made this happen." But that's not what this is about at all. It speaks to the interdimensionality of these experiences that we're having, and that what we believe to be 3D and solid just isn't. And that's where so much of our suffering comes from, because we're so attached to these ideas that what we see with our senses is actually reality, when it's just an interpretation. We interpret code, we interpret electric signals and electromagnetic signals And I'm not a science or tech guy to explain it any better. I can just tell you what I feel. But that experience was repeated in many other ways, maybe not as extreme, but often things in our reality happened that shouldn't have happened and that shouldn't be possible. And the question is, the question that keeps coming up is, which is real? Is the split second real, or the rest of what we experience? And you could almost say, I think we are coded into a dream, and for a lot, it's a bad dream. It's the matrix, right? We're coded into this matrix, and we're beginning to decode ourselves from it. And so the question for me is, and I really don't know, is, are we going to propel ourselves out of it into prime reality, which I believe is much less dense. It's more crystalline in nature. I can feel it in my meditations in states of expanded consciousness where I don't have the burdens of the physical body and the heaviness and all that crap. And it's easy many times in my meditations. Or the second option is, we will actually free whatever this realm is from this grid that was here for so long, of darkness, of evil, of all these impure thoughts. And frankly, it doesn't matter which one it is. I'm just ready for this transformation, and it is happening, right? As I said before, so many strange things. People are falling away, like people that used to be in your life, and try to look them up. You won't find there's no trace of them anywhere anymore. It's like they've fallen off the earth. And it was something that was said a long time ago. People are just going to fall away. They're not going to be in your experience anymore because they didn't make that shift with you. So this is definitely happening. And whichever way it works, I think it's a technicality. It might not be that important in the end.
And at the same time, wonderful people out of the blue just come into your experience that you never would have expected. But
yes.
Yeah. And, either way it plays out, I think that the point is have fun with the game. It's, what an amazing ride. I marvel every day looking at just things, the way they play out, so synchronistic, and just things you can't make up anymore.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, when you're synced into this knowledge of what you're exactly saying, Jean, that the gross physicality is just an illusion and that everything is mental and derived from divine desire, right? That plays into the rightness in our conscious, in terms of what we see as right as wrong. And when we go with the inner voice and we believe in it and we project it out, that becomes our reality. I think when we understand that, we play with this and we have fun with it, man, life is fun on the individual. And so the more that people, there's a discussion going on in the chat right now, and it's really driven a lot by Jason Brashears in terms of the collective reality. Jason often says, and for those that aren't familiar with Jason, he's been on the Inspired channel. He's been on with Alfa Vedic. He has some amazing, amazing truth drops in terms of all his research. The guy is quite profound in his work, and we appreciate him so much. He's really doing amazing work. And what he's really stressing is that the collective future is already sort of set. We've moved past that ability to change that collective destiny, if you will. But he also agrees that personally, we can affect our reality because of the way the nature of the simulation, and that we can literally project our own reality. So what's the difference then? If each individual comes to know this, right, and starts doing this themselves, then that, and to me, in effect, will shift the collective reality. Because if each individual wakes up to this and gets out of the gross materialism and understands this, right, you start to see it. To me, it makes sense. Then there can be a collective shift. Do you see it happening that way, Jean, or are you more in the perspective that, and I know we've kind of been talking about this, but that this reality is set and that we just need to sort of, I guess the thing that we're seeing in our scene is a lot of people are becoming separatists and they're just finding their own kind of way out. But I think it is crucial that we work together as a community. Where do you see that going for you? And are you developing community on your end of the spectrum over where you're at?
Yes, yes, we are. And I'm going to try to answer the questions chronologically.
Thank you. Sorry, that was a lot.
No. It's all good. It all kind of belongs together. What what Jason talks about is so, in terms of data and research, is so profound, Jason Bashir's. That's not something I can comment on because I haven't spent all those years collecting that data. So, more power to him for this amazing ability to put it all together. But what I will say is I haven't experienced in a very practical way yet that people can be propelled into an experience they're not ready for. So I haven't seen that yet, that evidence. So that someone who is, whether that's physically or spiritually, not ready for an experience, yes, they can be physically a part of it, but they won't benefit from it at all. And so you and I, or let's take you and someone who's completely different from you. You could have the exact same physical experience, but you would take away completely different things. For you, it would be bliss and joy and happiness. For them, it would be horror and fear because they don't know it, they don't understand it, they haven't thought about it. And so I don't think in the spectrum of vibration that people can actually have an experience that is far removed from their own vibration. I just don't think they can have it because there is such a gap. That's to say that I don't think that the lowest vibration in the spectrum can actually move up to the highest vibration of the spectrum without a journey. So I don't think we can all be propelled into a collective shift just like that. I think there has to be a journey. But we think of time, right? But where does time matter but in this life experience? I don't think time matters. We think of time the way it is, but it's not a linear thing at all. So it's our human perception trying to decode and interpret things that we can with our senses, because it's all based on some linear metric. And you only move past this linear metric when you're not in your day-to-day life, when you're not doing interviews and when you're not analyzing problems, because then you move out into all that is, and there's nothing to do there but to be. And I think we're slowly but surely pulling that more and more into our physical experience. More and more we're realizing that we're beings not doing so much. And at the same time, I'm doing so much. So I totally understand the controversy in all of it, and the paradox, and even in some ways it's even nonsensical. But I think this is what the transitioning period is. This is where you are learning. This is where you're expanding. And in matters of community, when people connect with like-minded people, first of all, there's a relaxation that happens. All of a sudden, you're not alone with the crazy thoughts. All of a sudden, you're not the only one who's thinking about these things, and you realize it's much more common than you thought. And then people start to have similar goals, and people start to, once you return to that more natural state of being in your spirit, you want to put your hands in the dirt more. You want to smell the flowers more often, and you want to be able to go maybe into your backyard or go into your piece of land and pick a fruit and eat it and have that divine experience, right? So the creation of community is so important on so many levels. It's also important to have this power in numbers so you can defy aggressors and oppressors and all that crap that's happening, and say, hey, there's a lot of us here. Why don't you just fuck off and go somewhere else or whatever? I'm just, pardon my French, but I mean, sometimes, that too helps with community. We're beginning to build it on many different fronts. There's a group that we're a part of that is really desiring to educate people on what freedom means and how the expression of freedom is, and how important it is to be educated on that and to continue the education on that. Then we're connected with people that are very much into creating that natural space and community around it, and gardens and food forests and all of that. And then there is the community of people that are inspired to help others see a greater picture. So there's a lot of communities actually that we have become a part of and we're beginning to build, which is very, very inspiring. And every time that we go and have a meeting or talk to one of these groups, there's greater clarity, right? Because we enrich each other or provoke each other, have arguments, find solutions. All the capabilities and abilities we have started to lose as a collective because of constant bombardment with distractions. real life communication, talking to each other, listening, not just listening to respond, listening, comprehending information, realizing you might have been wrong about something. It can't be replaced with just online communication, with just this, all of this is making a huge comeback. So yeah, if that answered in a few ways your questions you had, I hope. And don't get me wrong, I realize the contradiction in actually speaking out against technology while using it to do it. I'm it's not lost on me.
Well, technology, the way I see it is there's nothing new under the sun, and nothing can be brought out in a technological form unless it already exists. So as we're using technology, we should really understand, okay, how can I just bypass this technology with my own inner game? And I think was the original intention of technology, not to have it become a dependency or to have somebody weaponize it against us. So, you're talking about people that are ready for certain experiences and others that aren't. And not everybody's going to have the same reaction to world events and things that are, happening right now. Well, take a lesson from our technology. You have to have the software. And without the software, you can't experience things in a certain way. And the software in our realm, I believe, is experience. And some of us open ourselves up to certain information, certain experience. And, that allows us to go places where other people don't go. I just wanted to touch on a quick question. I wanted to ask you about your own homestead there in Tennessee. But before we get into that, you talked about freedom, and that you teach freedom. Now, freedom, I think, is a little deeper concept than most people appreciate. So in a nutshell, how would you define freedom?
Well, in very simple terms, and that's maybe not even as spiritual, it's not having to do things you don't want to do. And that's, if you take it very simple, our political systems, our society is based on the premise that your life is micromanaged, right? I mean, even in the United States that prides itself on freedom, is like there are so many things you have to do, fill out forms and file things and comply with things that are actually detrimental to the whole, right? So freedom to me means that you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. At the same time, your actions can never harm another. That's the end of freedom. In a more spiritual sense, to me, freedom is realizing this is a experience. It's not the experience. I'm having an experience in a physical body, but that's not who I am, right? And once I realized that, I mean, put me in a cell, whatever. It won't make me less free, because I realize I'm not that which you put into the cell. You put a physical vehicle in a cell that's gonna perish at some point anyways. And that to me is real freedom. And then it leads to responsibility. If you really discover freedom, you also discover the responsibility that it brings. And living in freedom, it's the highest form of responsibility that you then have, because you are then only bound by your moral compass, by your principles and values. Because I'll be honest, I don't answer to lawmakers. I don't answer to any written rule, because I know what it was created for. It wasn't created for your or my benefit anyways, but I answer to a much higher authority. And so while things technically would be allowed in our society and I would be free to do them, I'm not doing them because I know they're wrong, right? I know they would harm others. And that to me, we need to bring responsibility and freedom in the same realm, right? It's the highest form of living, truly. And I understand today much better why, as we have lost our way, all these rules and regulations in a very ironic way had to come in, because in some way society needed some sort of protection against those who had no more boundaries. And we see it today, right? We see that a large number of people has no more boundaries. I mean, they harm, they kill, they steal because they've lost their way completely. And freedom to me is really returning to that spiritual understanding that we're part of the creator's energy and that we have the highest responsibility. That's why I'll be very blunt here. If you go to someone who's very ignorant, very stupid, you can't teach them freedom by saying you're free to do whatever you want. It is a spiritual journey that we have to take again. It's a moral journey that we have to take again. It's a value journey that we have to take again. So a much bigger topic than meets the eye to me, and not just something you write in a post, and that's why it is so. It's a big responsibility to live in pure freedom.
So the law of balance is that you can only get as much freedom as you give. And ironically, then the control freaks of the world have less freedom than anybody.
I mean, have you ever seen one of those? Look at the whatever, the people that are in the visible eye. Look at the George Soroses or the Hillary Clintons or the Bill Gateses or the Klaus Schwabs. Do you see happiness? Do you see joy? Do you see even, I don't know, they're not even content. I mean, there's so much.
You definitely don't see any beauty.
No inner, no outer beauty. So, it's exactly like you just said, Bear, that the irony is that they themselves are in the greatest form of bondage and they don't realize it.
Yeah, I think I think we do have a duty, and that comes with freedom, right? Responsibility and the duty to live a righteous, virtuous life. And there was a question here by Samuel in the chat. Is it worth, trying to tell and help people that might be on the process of waking up, quote unquote, waking up, which is a never ending journey of us waking up out of the dream, right? What I said is, live by, teach by example, by how you live, right? It's like the classic chivalrous knight. They took those oaths to protect the weak and protect those who need the protection through living a virtuous way. And I think that's just the way to do it, is go out and live that beautiful life and show the beauty of love, which is the generating principle of all, in everything you do. And then that resonance will reach others who are on that same path. You'll meet amazing friends, and then others will hopefully see that as an example of a means towards a better life. And so you do that in amazing ways by not only through your channel, but through your music and all your passions. Did you want to speak a little bit to your musical career and where that's led to now, and why you chose to do that, and what fruits have you taken from this wonderful journey of doing music?
That's a good question. It's been really a journey. I've been singing for as long as I can think. I couldn't walk past the microphone, even as a small child, and I had multiple experiences in the music industry, even as a kid, where I withdrew, although it was very successful what I was doing, intuitively withdrew from the system, and of course as a kid I didn't realize why. And then the more I went into the, you deal with record labels and the whole mainstream entertainment system, the more I realized that I asked myself why I even wanted to sing, right? I started writing songs at 14, and there's usually two kinds of people in music. There are those who will learn the first 3 chords on a guitar and start playing songs they love by other people, and those who learn their first 3 chords and start writing songs. And I was the latter. I was the writing songs kind of guy. And it was always an expression. And in the past, music had a very specific purpose. It wasn't just to entertain people. That was the least of its purposes. The main purpose was to speak truth and do it in an emotional, passionate way. Speak about the beauty of nature, the beauty of creation, and any other truth, really. And so the musicians, the singers of the past, they would travel through the land and sing to people, and their songs were truths and teachings. And boy, have we steered away from that. I mean, just where we are today, it's absolutely shallow, meaningless, and serves only a purpose of control, right? I mean, controlling the mind and polluting it and poisoning it. And so I realized the more I entered into the market of music, that I slowly but surely would lose myself in it. You know, I would lose a little bit of essence every single day when you play ball. And so as hard as it was in many ways, Kristin and I decided that we were never going to play ball in any area. So even my musical journey was very unique in the sense that I only record the songs I want to record. I only write the songs I want to write. And I'm really desiring to return to the state that I just described of what a singer or musician should be, what their cultural role is, right? That's a purpose, that's a destiny that you have, that's a talent you've been given for a reason. And if that reason is solely to entertain or solely to fill your pocket or solely to feed your ego, you know, you're not living up to it. And ever since I made that clear choice many years ago, I've been nothing but excited about this journey. And then you meet people, like you said, Mike, you meet or Bear, you said it, people step into your life that feel the same way. And now I'm at a stage where I'm recording and writing songs that I feel are true to that destiny, true to that purpose. Whether that's going to resonate with 1 million people or 10, that's not up to me. That's not my job to decide. My job is to live up to the purpose. That's all there is to it. And the rest is going to be decided by whoever runs the show.
I had the opportunity to work with the legend Merle Haggard before he passed. And that, you know, you being a country music singer, I'm sure are familiar with the sort of outlaw aesthetic that he and a lot of the Bakersfield crew developed, right? And that was some of my favorite country music. And so going to his estate and working with him, shooting a music video was really interesting to see how this outlaw sort of was very worn down by the system. And I think he kind of gave in to the commodification of the music and, you know, had many homes, many wives, all that. And it was kind of heartbreaking to see a man who I looked up to so much as an outlaw who sort of gave in a little bit to the system. So props to you, Mr. Nolan, for sticking to your guns, because I think it's more important than ever with how terrible music is and how commodified and I mean, pop music is probably the worst music in the world now than the history of known man. So for you to step out there and do that and create your own marketplace with your patriotic music, I think says a lot about your character, but also it's a smart business plan. I think people will have a future that stick to their guns and do that. I really believe that is the future of music because of things like the internet and your ability to create your own marketplace. Have you seen, you know, fans reaching out to you through platforms like YouTube because of your music and getting this sort of messaging that by sticking to your guns, they've been inspired themselves to maybe write their own music or follow in their passions outside of the system?
Oh, that's happening every day now. I mean, like you said in the previous comment you made before we talked about music, when you step out and do something that is maybe a little unusual, maybe, you know, off the beaten path, and when you do it authentically, you also give others permission to do it. I mean, you don't do it consciously, but that's what they get. Oh, so you can do it differently, right? And all of a sudden more people go, okay, I'm going to try this too, because this is what I really feel, rather than what, you know, this industry wants me to be. And just a quick comment, and I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I encourage you, because you're going to have Kathy on. I don't know if you read her book, Transformation of America, or Access Denied, but yeah, there's something to be said about Merle Haggard and quite a few other people in country music that's unfortunately not what people want to hear about them. Yeah.
Here it is, guys. Definitely a harrowing read, to say the least.
Talk about you know, talk about being let down when you meet your heroes or learn the truth about them. But the whole journey is so inspiring to me when people reach out now, because we have the Inspired platform and my music platform, that are beginning to cross-pollinate, if you will, and people are beginning to realize that I haven't really been talking about it too much on the channel. It's just starting to come through it, because I'm really not two separate guys. I'm one, I'm one being. I'm not an artist from 9 to 12, and then I'm a podcaster, whatever you want to call it. I'm just doing what I'm inspired and what I to do and what I think my purpose is. And that was always that's all I ever wanted to transport. When I really started playing bigger shows and bigger tours back in Austria, people would always ask me, from the press, everybody, how is it to entertain a huge crowd? And I always said, that's not my thought. At the end of the show, one of my favorite things was to go out and talk to people, right? I mean, I would sign CDs and stuff like that, but just the conversations. And when I heard someone say, this inspired me, that's when my heart was full, because I thought to myself, what was it really that just happened to that person? Yes, I might have played a song they like. Yes, they might have enjoyed that. But I think what they saw is someone who's living their purpose. They saw me on stage doing what is part of my purpose. So if it inspired them, perhaps they themselves will feel their own purpose and ask themselves, what is my equivalent to what this guy is doing? What is my purpose? What am I here for? And if that happens, that's when my job is done. That's all I ever wanted to do with a song, with a show, with an interview. That's all I ever want to do, is remind people that me living on purpose is just hopefully an inspiration to you doing the same. Because when we do that, that's when the collective really shifts. When people begin living their purpose, what they are here for, uniquely, authentically here for, the game really shifts. So that in everything I do is really the intention.
Inspiration is truly divine. Other levels of motivation, come from a different place. So it's just somebody living authentically is, as you say, true inspiration, and it's going to wake up people that are ready for that level of purpose. You're hinting around at some folks that are maybe in the industry. In my clinical days, I had quite a few of those folks. And they would come in, with health issues. And there were, I won't get too graphic or name anybody either, but there's a lot of compartmentalization that had to go on in their psyche in order to make the decision to be owned, basically. And that did eventuate in illness and, issues that, brought them to my doorstep. Some of them, interestingly, also came from families with certain practices where they, we'll say, were victimized, from early on, and then used, and, even though later on became celebrity. So back when Kathy first came out with her book, I was still involved with that group I was telling you about, where David used to speak and so forth. And I recognized immediately Kathy's story. It didn't stretch my imagination, because I had worked with folks that had been down a very, maybe not the same identical MK Ultra, at the hands of directly from the government, but people that were definitely mind controlled from a very early age and used, with that. And that's why it's such a blessing when, Kathy came out and then was able to validate all her experiences. And of course, what's really special about her is she came out the other end, which takes, a pretty strong will, force, and constitution to be able to pull that off. So what a tough road to go, though.
Absolutely. Kathy is such a beautiful spirit. She's become a dear friend, and absolutely amazing how brightly she shines if you think of what she's experienced. And she's a true testament to the human spirit. I always say that's a true testament.
Yeah, we talk
And
about.
Not just to,
Go ahead,
Mike.
Barry. No, you go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to say, not just to survive, but also to not just forever look at the world as a hopeless, dark place, and carry the optimism that she resonates. Mike, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say we're talking, like, the title of this talk is Be Inspired for the Breakthrough Moment. And Kathy is a great example of that, how in her book she documents how she goes through that, and which is a much more harrowing adventure than I would ever wish upon anybody in this realm. However, I do think it's important for us to all realize, I think we all have to go through that breakthrough moment to really understand why we're here in our journey. And that's really what everybody's here to do. And Bear, you as a physician got to see that so many times, right? With your patients and clients, where they had a health crisis that forced them to have that breakthrough moment. Jean, have you had that breakthrough moment? And what possibly was that for you?
I want to say there were quite a few of those. It wasn't just one, but the way at least I think, and for most people, is the breakthrough comes after the breakdown, and the breakdown is some sort of truths that you thought were true are not true, and so you kind of shatter a little, because there's something that dies before a breakthrough. Something always needs to first die. Some illusion, some pain, some trauma. And for me, it was quite a few times where I thought, I'm at the end of my rope here. There's nothing I can do at this point, right? I've tried everything I could and it's not working out. And every time that I went through a moment like that, greater expansion has happened, because eventually I always asked myself, what's the alternative? What else am I going to do but go through this? And there was a time, and this is what I consider really a breakthrough. It's when really a portal opened, if you will. There was a time where I was, and I'm no stranger to hard work. That's how I was brought up. So work is not a problem for me, but there was a time where none of my work would come to fruition whatsoever. Wouldn't matter. I could do 8 hours a day. I could do 16, 18 hours a day. I could do more, even more, and nothing worked out. And it had taken a toll on me physically, spiritually, financially, everything. At that point, there was really not much left. And I said, okay, I gave in. I just went into my bedroom, and I meditated. Said, okay, I did everything I could for years. It's not working. Show me. And I decided to stay there for as long as it would take. And I would show up every day for that. I would just meditate, sometimes hours at a time. And eventually something began to relax inside of me. All these ideas, all these, you got to work harder, all that crap. It began to just relax, and I could feel something greater coming through. And that something greater started giving me real inspired ideas. I'm not even joking, real inspired ideas that I had no idea where they came from. They were not part of my thought process. They were not part of anything I had been engaged in. And all this voice, all this presence was saying to me was, just do this next thing. Just do this next thing. Just the one thing that's right in front of you. And I started following that. And things began to slowly but surely put themselves into a balanced place. And, I've experienced in the physical sense, in this financial sense, really from lavish abundance as a child to nothing, less than nothing, like losing everything and having nothing. And it was in that nothing moment that I had some of the greatest inner joy that actually propelled me into what our life is now and what it's expanding into now. But these breakthrough moments never happened without my willingness to forgive whatever came up as an experience from the past, or forgive myself for not being better, for not getting it done, for not being able, whatever the thought was. And that to me is the key element of breakthrough moments, is There has to be a healing that happens on a deeper level, because there's a reason why you're suffering. There's a reason why the suffering continues, and it's not natural. It's because we were traumatized. It's because we live in a traumatizing way in society. And so these breakthrough moments, what connects them all, a characteristic that they all have, is that forgiveness needed to happen. And then the joy that comes after is just absolutely indescribable. It's reconnecting with source. And this happens individually, and it has to happen on a collective level too at some point, right? We're going to have that experience too. But what I want to encourage people to do is find a way, find help with it. There are great helpers with that. There are great processes for that. We can't access the deep pain that's hidden in the subconscious sometimes without help, but that's the key thing. That's what we need to heal. That's the breakthrough moment. And so don't be shy to ask for help. This is the time in our shared history to do it.
Are there any modalities or methods that you came across that you think would be valuable?
Yes, and actually many I've used. I mean, Kristin, my wife, has been a coach for many, many years, and I've done my share of coaching and one-on-one coaching. And one that I always, well, two that I love, but one that is very accessible to many people is called The Journey by Brandon Bass. And I don't know if you're familiar, but that is a very it's a very short process if you think of how long trauma lingers, decades, and the process itself maybe takes an hour and a half too. It's facilitated with a practitioner, and there are two kinds, an emotional and a physical journey, and both are really emotional, but the way they take place is a little different. And people can look them up on thejourney.com. We've used this process many, many, many times. It is not applicable for absolutely everyone. Where the mind control thing comes in, it doesn't seem to work as well. That's where we would suggest maybe reading Kathy O'Brien's book, PTSD, A Time to Heal. Also very powerful. And the second thing that has been absolutely amazing in our life experience so far are family constellations. And this is something I hold so dear in my heart. I can't recommend a practitioner here in North America currently because I don't have experience here. Kristin has been doing them for many, many, many years, and maybe in the future she will do that again. But family constellation therapy is one of the most powerful tools and ways to facilitate healing. And these two, the journey and the family constellation, have absolutely changed countless lives that I was lucky enough to be a part of and experience, changed and transformed in ways that you couldn't possibly imagine. And those are the breakthrough moments, really. Those are really the breakthrough moments in my experience.
Fantastic.
The family, the family constellation, sorry to interrupt, but that's come up a lot lately. We've had a lot of people talking about that in our Telegram group. Kelly Brogan just shared someone she recommends on her sovereignty series, Kelly Brogan, MD, if you're familiar with her work. So that's really interesting that you bring all these, it's like so many synchronicities in this talk for me right now, Jean. It's blowing my mind right now. I haven't even heard of that. Are you familiar at all? No, I'm not. Like, I literally am just hearing about this in this month. So,
yeah.
I was involved. I was just going to say, in my practice, we pioneered some techniques that that address that issue, and they were absolutely critical with helping people break through with a lot of issues. I don't know what's going on recently. I come from a different era. And actually, a lot of what was going on back then in the 60s, 70s, when I was getting a lot of my core training, and then continued to develop, really became the basis of a lot of work that's out there now being taught and workshopped and things. But we would always have to address the family matrix. We'd have to very often bring in other family members and treat them, because otherwise, it's just next to impossible to help the first individual that came in to see us in the first place. When I was in Hawaii, I worked with traditional kahunas over there. And, the first thing they told me is, well, you got to do pono. And so if a person came in with a particular issue, then, you didn't see the kahuna, you saw one of the assistants, and then they gathered together all the family members, even if they had to canoe out to neighboring islands. And when they got everybody together and cleared the air, then the kahuna would come and say, okay, now we can heal the individual that was portraying the illness of the entire clan there. And in our work also, we had a way, because it was very neurological based, we had a way of going in and addressing ancestry, not just living relatives. And that really went into some interesting areas. So I don't know how that compares to with, what people are doing now, but anything else you want to share about that would be nice.
Actually, everything that you just mentioned is part of family constellation therapy. And I just want to say that's one of the fields where we've only ever worked with very, very experienced facilitators. I mean, literally decades of experience. And the idea is simple. The idea is very simple. There is a natural family hierarchy, a system that was put in place. And when that system is healthy and whole, right? When that system works the way it was supposed to work, then the individuals in that system are healthy and whole. It's as simple as that. When the individuals are not healthy and whole, that's a sign that the family system is not healthy and whole. And what do I mean by family system? Where there's a mother and a father, those are the basic elements. And then when they have children, that's the next tier, the next generation down. And in that relationship, there's a natural hierarchy. You can never step to the same level that your parents are in, or even above them. But in our lived experience, that's so often happening today. And then there are so many unhealthy dynamics between a husband and a wife often, or between the generations, because of, unspoken abuse, unhealed trauma, abortions, all these that play a huge role in the family system and that have never been talked about and never brought to light and never healed. And the energy of these abuses and the pain and the energy of every unbalanced thing that happens in the family system, unless it is addressed and healed, it doesn't go away, because energy doesn't go away. It just begins to express itself in the generations to come. And the longer it lingers in a family system, the greater the suffering and the pain becomes. And that's when you see untimely deaths. That's when you see a lot of, quote unquote, generational sicknesses, illnesses, alcoholism, all these tendencies that are unnatural to us. And when you heal the family system, and for that, you actually don't need the whole family. Usually it's one member of the family. Usually it's the one that suffers greatly that facilitates this in a seminar, for example, in a family constellation seminar. It begins to trickle into the whole family. And oftentimes you don't know where the pain comes from. Like you said, it could be 3 generations back. And in a family constellation session, that becomes apparent. It becomes apparent where it comes from, and it can be healed at that level, on a soul level. It all sounds very mystical, but once you have experienced it for yourself, you will see that it's actually extremely logical, and it makes all the sense in the world. And I've seen so many healings happen through it that are so powerful and that are so inspiring, because we return to these eternal truths again, like the family is the core, the core community within any system. And that's why it's being fought so hard, of course. That's why the family as the natural institution, which everything is based on, has been fought the hardest, because that's how you break societies. That's how you break nations, is when you destroy the family system. And when you heal it, likewise, that's how a new thriving comes up. That's why I'm so passionate about this. And Kristin and I have talked on our locals platform in a more intimate manner a lot about family constellation.
Great. The only thing, the only therapy that seems mystical to me is the conventional medical system as it's evolved to present.
Oh man, talk about Talk about conspiracies there, right? That makes so much sense to me. Like even the Plato talks about the family logos, right? And how we're all interconnected through our thoughts. And that comes, of course, in physical, exasperation of illness. That makes so much sense to me. I'm going to look deeper into that. And thank you so much for bringing that to the forefront for people, because obviously we see in the postmodern realm now of forced sort of the family dynamic being separated by, the education system and through the culture of the technology, the shattering of the nuclear family and the extended family has, I think, led to a lot of the peril in society, in the West especially. So this is something I think could be a great modality for many to heal that past trauma and then come together and really trust in each other again. So thanks for bringing that up. That's really phenomenal.
You're very welcome. I think it's something that can help heal whole nations. I really believe that. Well,
And
the
no
idea of
coincidence.
I was just going to say the idea of the nation being a family too, right? And nationhood and this sort of mental destiny of a nation like America, where we have this destiny that the forefathers envisioned through this sort of self-actualization, but that was a sort of mentality of the entire United States, right? That this is like manifest this reality together. And of course, that's been completely shattered and destroyed through cultural Marxism and all sorts of other mind melding, terrible philosophies that have been interjected through the public school system. So yes, us as a nation family too, I think is really important. Go ahead, Bear.
And the real history is when you get into the root races, I think what were the seventh root race. And also I was actually listening to, what's the name? A Native American. He was on your channel that talked about we're the seventh generation of the mixed race. And
are you speaking about Oren Lyons? Chief Oren Lyons?
Yeah. But anyway, I was going to mention the root races. Each root race has had its own little energetic quirks, and those are acknowledged in the practice of homeopathy. We call them miasms, and they, are the underpinnings of what we think of as, disease or illness in the physical level. And so we're talking about energetics that linger centuries and eons. So you're right, there's no time factor for energy. It just is until somebody breaks the cycle. So I think now it's time to get really down and dirty here. So what are you guys doing on your land out there in Tennessee? Have you got something going with Jim or Gabriel and doing things on your own land?
Yes, the project that we're currently really working on is the first Freedom Farm Academy here in Tennessee, which is going to be a space where on about 1 to 2 acres, we're going to, put in a food forest. A studio will be built for Inspired. It's going to be completely self-sufficient, all of course on the basis of permaculture. And it will serve as, of course, a space where we continue to grow food, but as an educational space on permaculture, on food forests, on off-the-grid living, and on all other topics. And the idea is to educate people that want to do it themselves, people that want to be other, facilitators for others. We're really invested in the idea that we can maybe turn 20-30% of the lawns of America into food forests, right? Just imagine even 5% what that would mean. This is the land of lawns. Nowhere in the world do you have more perfectly manicured lawns. We're in Williamson County, Tennessee, I can just tell you, this is like an art form here. And while it's quite beautiful to the eye, it's the most nonsensical way of using land and abusing it because of all the pesticides you need and the manpower that goes into manicuring it, when you could put in a beautiful food forest landscape that looks beautiful, tastes beautiful, takes care of itself, transforms the soil, and is a multi-generational gift to mankind and nature itself. So we're just beginning to help people shift that in their minds, right? Because they think it's so much cheaper and easier to maintain a lawn when nothing could be further from the truth. So that's our, aside from our own piece of paradise that we're co-creating, that's really as a public service, if you will, something that we're very, very passionate about. And that just, it's just something that brings tears to my eyes when I think about the possibility that maybe in 10, 15 years, you will have so much food abundance in this country that no matter what happens, no matter who tries to do anything, people are fed, people are happy. And just recently, we did an interview with Jim Gale when they installed the first food forest at his school down in Florida. It was just so powerful to see. And he said, just the interest and the effect it has on the students. And I can only imagine what's going to happen in a year when they see the fruits of their labor, when they see what happened to those trees and to everything they've installed there and that they put into the dirt, and how they're going to eat rather than some crap artificial lunch food, where they're going to eat the fruits and the veggies from their own food forest that they planted. That is changing a generation. That right there is changing a generation. And we want to do it on a really, really big scale. So that's the one side. And the other side is our own little kin's domain that Kristin and I and our family is co-creating. And that is the most intimate and most private journey we have. So we don't currently share too much about that, other than what it entails, not where it is or stuff like that, because we want to have our private and sacred space that we co-create.
Yeah. Totally understand. Deb and I, we take the greatest joy in doing just that. And, at the end of every day, we'll usually have a project, and, it entails a lot of labor and long hours. But at the end of the day, we just sit there on a rock or somewhere and just stare at, what we did all day. And there's just nothing more satisfying. You actually see a tangible creation. And, on this particular farm that we're on, it's our fourth off-grid homestead. And so we've learned a little bit each time. And then we finally made it to this piece because it's just has all the ingredients we needed to take it to the, what we consider the ultimate level. And so we've been here going on to our 7th year. And just like our first projects, you work and you see some results, and, but then after year 3, 4, 5, and then now, this summer was year 6. It's just phenomenal. You see all your efforts just coming to life. And of course, every effort that you put in when you're working with nature is met 10,000-fold. And so, you mentioned about lawns being repurposed. People have no idea the aesthetics of a real food production, medicinal herb production. We have little meditation spots. We have zones that are, purpose for one thing or the other. Some of them are around, like I have my lab out here, and, around my lab, we have different other things growing that are all make sense to grow in that particular zone. And there's just nothing more satisfying, and definitely takes, eases the Deb and I are empty nesters, and we were always parenting was the most important decision we ever made, and we did it consciously. And so this really helps the empty nesting syndrome as well. We have new little babies out there in our farm that we, nurture and bring to life every single day. But no, there's nothing more gratifying. And talk about beautification of the earth, just creating topsoil for new generations to come if you're doing things right. And also the decentralization. So we're getting, eliminating the need for the scourge of factory farming and all the practices that go along with that have destroyed the soil. And most important is just reconnecting us to the land, period, because that to me is the greatest ill of all. So that's awesome. So my question to you there is, how do we, we're doing it right now, I understand, but how do we reconnect on another level? Like, I really want to get more on board with Gabriel, because I understand just their little 2-acre plot thing, and Jim has his own avenue. It seems like we all have a little piece of the puzzle. So I'd love to see a larger thing mesh out of all this.
Yeah,
I'd sure like to participate with it.
Same here, honestly. And I think one thing, and that's, I want to bring it up because when you talk about new communities and when you talk about self-sufficiency and off-grid, so often the topic comes up of communities and people living together and sharing land. And this has been brought up to us so often. And I want to make one thing clear in our observation, and this is what Anastasia says so beautifully also in the books. It is very important that a couple, a family, has their own space that belongs to them, that isn't shared with other families. Yes, you can share in a community. Yes, you can have plots next to each other. You can do all of that. You can share community space. You can have schools and all the other stuff that you want to do. But there is something to be said, and it doesn't really matter how big or how small the space is. There's something to be said about the family energy that manifests in a space. And when we talk about communities, I think that's the one thing we have gotten wrong in the past collectively. We always wanted to do the big sharing, and it just basically doesn't work, because not every family always has the same vision at the same time. And you might want to you're really inspired to put in a lot of labor into the beautification, and the other family just really isn't inspired to put in a lot of labor. Creates a lot of imbalances. And so our vision is, and I think we share this with Gabriel and also Jim, is to start creating small communities. And one of the things that we would love to do is literally liberate land from the commercial repurposing system, where it's being sold and resold every few years for speculative purposes. Liberated, so purchasing it out there, taking it out of that cycle. And there are lawful ways to do it. Whether they really work or not, we will see, but there are lawful ways to do it. And then have that land pieced off in 2-3 acre lots where families can purchase it, not to make a profit, but purchase it for their own family, and start creating their own sacred space. And the suggestion that comes from the books, which I think would be very important to implement, is that we need to get maybe our local municipalities and towns on board with the idea that such spaces could be very health producing, food producing spaces that maybe shouldn't be taxed. That's kind of a tough sell. But in the long term, I think we need to think about these things also. What are the practical ways to implement that? You're not really free on your land if you have to pay rent to the government every year. So all these ideas are coming together, and they're being, we're starting to think through how to actually make that happen. And so one step at a time. But I don't think we need to create communities with thousands of families next to each other. I would actually look at smaller cells of maybe tens of families, maybe 20 or 30 families that are in a space, and they can share a lot together, right? When they have their own piece of land, and they can have some infrastructure that they share. And obviously school education would be very, very important, because while many of us have homeschooled, and it is a wonderful way to do it, it would also be beautiful to see children that grow up similarly, on their own piece of land, growing food with their families, being educated in such an energy together. So that is happening. And we're open to all collaborations. So if you all have ideas if there is land that's somewhere available, we're starting to connect the dots, like you say. And the sky's the limit of what we can accomplish with this. There's so much land in the United States that is deemed not very valuable in the commercial sense, but extremely valuable to families that want to live harmoniously with nature.
And even in urban areas, I couldn't agree more with anything. You know, we saw a lot of failed experiments in the 60s and 70s when everybody was, you know, trying to do communes, and it just always turned into chaos. And, you know, one thing, I had a short little stay in one that kind of situation. What we saw is a lot of people that would arrive because they had needs, not because they had skills or real effort that they wanted to put into it. And the other thing was there's a great tendency to want to have meetings all the time. And Deb and I would sit there, you know, and we're like, God, think of all the stuff we could have done already, you know, if we weren't in this stupid meeting. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of folks like yourself that just want to go out there and create and also have your own space. That is so, so important. It really is.
Well, we're doing that in some ways here. We've had people that have become attracted to this area through, you know, the podcast and the company and through other events we do, and have bought land up here, going through the process of getting their land patent so they can, you know, get off the hook for what you're talking about in terms of the extortion from the state. And then, you know, are now joining in a local network here. So we network, we do work parties, we have gatherings, we assist each other, but everyone is sovereign on their property with their family in that kin's domain aesthetic. And so I think what we could do is create a sort of a federation of landowners that are with it, that are, you know, into permaculture and in homesteading and all that, similar to what like Owen Benjamin has done with the Bears community, where we have a federation of us using something like Cordal, which is a decentralized new internet that I've been involved with, or some means where we do use technology for our benefit so that we can stay connected across time and space, but we're on the land and we have meetups and stuff, but now we're federated across the whole, you know, United States or whatever, across the world. So that we are connected. And then doing commerce, it's like, what are you an expert in? Oh, you're in Florida. You can grow amazing fruit. We're up, you know, here where we have a specialty in growing herbs. Let's connect. Let's do commerce. We would love your mangoes. We'll send you our teas, right? And so now we're building this bartering, trading, new commercial enterprise through a federated state of sovereigns versus being isolated in just those pockets of community. I think we can kind of have the best of both worlds. What do you think, Jean?
Well, I think that's exactly what it needs to be. And there's, you know, we live in the South, as I said, in Tennessee. And what Christina and I do quite often is when we drive further south, we go through states like Alabama, Georgia, you know, northern Florida, that are it's very fertile land, very, very beautiful land that's not used at all. So many people have land and property, so many little towns that are maybe an hour away from a bigger city or maybe 2 hours away from a bigger city are, you know, they are dying off. Their economies are dying off. There's nothing happening there, but people have extraordinary amounts of land there because their families have had it, because every property is at least an acre, but they don't realize the value they're sitting on there. So part of this is, can we educate these little towns on the opportunity and possibility that they have, not by growing monocultures and doing it in the you know, in the industrial agricultural way, but doing it in a permaculture or natural growing way, where you have no pesticides, of course, you have greater yields and you have a regenerative system. And I'm dreaming about touring through these little towns and talking to the people and saying, listen, you have so much valuable land that you could use. You can feed your own families. That's the number one plus. You can sell to, let's say, richer families for their own needs. You can sell to corporations that need it because they want to produce great organic food products, juices, whatever it is, right? So we have such an opportunity to even reach the people that maybe might have more of a, you know, just capitalistic mindset. How can I actually create a better economy here? It's not just one approach. There are so many approaches that we can take. And I think you probably will have the same situation in California and other states with these towns that are dying, that their economies are dying, but they're rich in land and rich in opportunity to do that. But this is education, right? Because when you tell them to grow fruit, well, I'm not a farmer. Well, you don't have to be a farmer, because the way this works is much different than what you've been taught. Doesn't mean it's not labor intense per se, but I think we could revitalize communities across the country and revitalize their economies and bring back their spirit, right? I mean, all these little townspeople are moving away, leaving their, leaving their family, leaving their heritage, and it shouldn't really be that way. So there are so many approaches like the one you just said that we could take. So I'm all open to putting our heads together and maybe creating even educational systems that can help do that in an easy and digestible way.
Well, I think it's already happening. John, I could talk to you all day here, and I look forward to doing this again. But any final thoughts you have, and or things that you'd like to discuss that we haven't already? And also, if you could tell our audience where they can find all of your different projects and creativity.
Well, first of all, thank you both. I could do the same. I could keep talking and sharing ideas. It's very inspiring. There's one thing that is in the Six Nations Confederacy Constitution, and in their opening ceremonies and in their transportation of wisdom, one thing that they always say is, no matter what situation you find yourself in, no matter how dire something seems to be, never take the hope away from the people. And I think this is more important now than ever. We're living through times that I call the manifestation of truth. And truth isn't necessarily pleasant and beautiful at all times. There's some ugly truths that we're becoming aware of as societies around the world. And that could lead people to despair and hopelessness, when nothing could be further from the truth. When this is so extremely important for us to realize what is truth and what is authenticity, what have been lies and what is a real path forward. And that's the time that we find ourselves in. And so when you think it's, you're surrounded by darkness, it's really just that darkness now showing itself. But that already means that something has happened. There had to have been an intention for this to happen. And this intention was by millions of people who wanted and still want a different, a new, a better future. And what is happening is that desire manifesting in our reality. And just like in our own journeys, it will take hindsight to really appreciate this. When we get there, if you will, when we get to a new period that is much brighter, we will appreciate this period much more. But don't ever give up. There is so much beauty on the horizon. There's so much potential, and it isn't outside of you. It's all inside of you. If I can leave with one message, it's all inside of you. You matter deeply. You matter so much to all of us and to this whole world. You have no idea how important you are and how important your light and your purpose is. Even if you haven't found it yet, it will find you when you open yourself up to it. And purpose is not a big word. It's in every little deed that you do. And you matter so much. Your presence matters. We need you, just like maybe you need us. And I just want everyone to know that we're in this together, and that we will continue to show up every day and never, ever give up hope. There's so much beauty that awaits us when we're through this period here. And it's showing already. The light is already showing through the cracks. So I hope I can leave with this positive message. And for those, who want to join the Inspired Tribe sometime and check out what we're doing, it's the Inspired channel on YouTube. And that's the main channel. We're also on Rumble. If you look up just the word Inspired, and if you want to find all the links at inspiredchannel.net, find our whole social media and all that beautiful stuff. And we'd love to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful.
No, thank you both so much.
And I understand that Deb and Bear are to be interviewed on that platform. So that
yes.
I'm very much looking forward to.
Yes. And I want to say something just for the record. I reached out first. I watched the movie, and we learned about Alfa Vedic, and then immediately Kristin was like, "Oh, They're wonderful. Let's have them on the channel. And so we reached out, but I think the email fell through the cracks, and oftentimes our emails do fall through the cracks. That's, I think, a game they're playing with us here. But I'm so excited we got to connect, and I can't wait to have you and Deb on the Inspired channel. It's going to be wonderful.
Well, we look forward to it, and great minds think alike, because my inbox has many cracks, and just independently down the road, I was a fan of yours, so I thought I'd reach out to see if you'd be open to coming on with us, and that's when you told me that you actually reached out, which I felt bad about, because anyway, Mike will tell you I'm notoriously bad with computer communication.
If you need to get Bear, email me. That's the secret, guys. Marty Leeds is in the chat, and he was saying we need to hear more from Mrs. Lando. So he's resonant too with this. And yes, I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be a good one. And let's stay connected, Jean. Let's work together. I really love the federation idea. I think that's something that is sort of missing a little bit, is the commerce angle, and giving people a means to bring in some of those ducats, whatever those will be, hopefully not fiat greenbacks, but some sort of sovereign currency of means. And I know Jim Gale's working on that. We're working on that with Cordal and with Alfa Vedic, trying to really be a model for a smaller enterprise of someone, developing an entrepreneurial means to create a model for, a multi-generational business is really what we're looking at here, going back to the family business, right? That's an inspiring means that you're already on that level too, and that we're all kind of seeing that as a way to get out of this mess. So thanks so much. Let's stay connected. And everybody, if you were resonating with this talk, give us a thumbs up. Please share with your friends and family. It really helps get the word out. This will come out as an audio podcast as well. You can follow us on Podbean. We're on Spotify and all those other platforms. So follow us wherever you feel most comfortable listening. We're also on Odyssey, Unite.live. We're still on DLive. I don't know if anyone's even watching us there anymore. But
I thought we got kicked off of that one.
Oh, we were only kicked off briefly when we had Owen on, and then they let us come back. So we did get kicked off Discord. So we're no longer on Discord for those that are asking. You can find us on Telegram at t.me/Alfa Vedic, and of course, alphavedic.com. Love you guys. We will have Kathy O'Brien on December 22nd. And then next week, please join us. Who do we have on next week? Let's see. We have, Henna Maria will be joining us from Europe with a wonderful presentation on the relationship with animals. And it's a really inspiring one. I will probably tear up and cry a little bit on that one. So join us next Thursday for that. And we love you guys. And thank you so much. Remember to get outside, get your feet in the dirt, go grow something, go for a hike with your family. Mother Nature is here for us to be a teacher. Go show her some love and respect. We'll see you next week. Cheers.